So hey guys, and welcome to Brett's Property Rant. And so today what I'm going to do is I'm basically just going to go through the weekly webinar that I run. I want to run through all the questions that we get. And I think, it's pretty interesting because there's such a variety of questions that we get each week. And so it's quite interesting just to spend a bit more time, because obviously we've got limited time. We only have about 90 minutes on the webinar. And so about half of that is Q&A, but actually being able to get. And so basically that's what I thought we'd do, is just spend a bit of time and go through. Okay, so look guys, we'll get straight into it. There's about 20 questions, so but I just thought we'll take the time. And then, by the way, if you don't want to listen to the whole thing, then I will be taking these and splitting them up into individual questions, so you can actually search on those on my channel. But just remember, subscribe. LinkedIn. Will also be on the website at gladfish.com/live. So basically, take your pick of where you want to watch it. But yeah, this is the first of the series, and this is the first time I've ever done live 2-3 or multi-streaming with this current studio setup. So I'm slowly building my studio at home. So I can just basically do as many videos as I want. So I'm quite excited about that, actually, to be able to just get into it. But anyway, let's get into it. So the first question is, I recently saw a video on YouTube from another company encouraging you to quit your job and just start doing property, even if you don't have the money saved up. Do you guys think this is a good idea? Yeah, I mean, there's a pretty easy absolutely not. I think most of where these questions come, not the question, but most of where these statements come from are from the gurus who are trying to sell you into a course and tell you how easy it is and it's simple and just make the jump. And look, I'm not saying that if you quit your job and jump boots and all, that you can't be successful. But what I am saying is that you are putting yourself under a massive amount of strain. And oftentimes it's right at the very start of when you are starting to be a property investor or starting to invest in property. So you don't know any better. And so you're listening to someone who apparently knows what they're talking about, but actually probably doesn't know what they're talking about, because what they're trying to do is sell you a property. Now, if you don't have the money, it is just ridiculous, okay, to do that. And there'll be lots of property gurus out there. And I say the guru term because actually, I don't necessarily agree that they are gurus. They're salespeople dressed up, wolves in sheep's clothing. And, I've always been pretty vocal about that side of the business, the hard sell. And you've got to keep your wits about you in this game, because if you don't, sorry, I just put that on there. If you don't, then potentially you're going to be out of a job. Potentially you've invested into a property course, and maybe somewhere between two. Okay. Now, I've got no problem with education, all right, but there's lots of education out there free, and I believe that you should do a lot of education before you quit your job. If you're going to approach a strategy that is a full-time strategy, then okay, fine, but get some capital behind. You're just going to put yourself under so much stress. To be able to have a job and to be able to go and do be a consideration. Certainly for what I do and the way I build a portfolio is that inspecting properties, developing properties, hammering nails, painting walls, and doing all that sort of stuff. Yeah, that's just not where, it's not the way I'm programmed. I'm much more set and forget. I'm much more about letting other people do what they do and finding the property for me, preparing it all, due diligence, all that sort of stuff, and then me making the assessment. But yeah, certainly it's it's very dangerous, I think, to do that. All right, so next question. Do you think the current uplift in the market is down to hype, and have we seen the full effects of Brexit, or is there more to come? Okay, so really good, actually, a really good question here, and I think Have we seen the full effects of Brexit? No, because we don't know what the outcome of Brexit will be. We don't know if we go on to WTO trade rules, what that's going to mean really. But the one thing I will say, if you look at all the doomsaying that went on there and how bad and how terrible they made things sound, it's amazing. In fact, it's reality was nowhere near like that. Now, I'm not going to get into a Brexit argument about. In some ways, I think it's going to turn out okay. I think, if Boris can do what he's saying and he can actually, I think the problem he's got is he's got a non-united UK, and I'm not just talking about Scotland and Wales and those. I think the key, the key for me is that it really requires some leadership. Now, he seems to be doing that, but then, with Boris, so many things you can, he starts off well, and then, it's sort of, doesn't quite go where it should, maybe. But look, bottom line is, do I think that we've seen the full effects? No, I don't. Do I think they're going to be as bad as some people make out? No, I don't. At the end of the day, Britain the center of the world in banking. New York sort of took over or was on par, but actually, to be fair, we haven't lost that yet. And now we've added startups. We've added Manchester and Birmingham as international cities. There's so many good things to actually go on about, but nobody's really talking about them because the narrative from the media is so negative. But yeah, so do I think the full effects? No, I don't. But I do think that it's not going to be as bad as it may seem. All right. So let's have a look at the next one. There we go. Should I buy in my own name or a limited company? Which is better? Yeah. So look, guys. I mean, this is a really good one because what I want to say is this. I'm not going to advise you. This is a mass market video. I could be speaking to someone with lots of capital. Building a professional portfolio and doing lots of things. Versus somebody who's got no money and they're buying their first property, and realistically they're at 55 years old and this is probably going to be their last property. So the bottom line is get professional help before you make a decision. But the principle that I'm telling people is this: the government has and pushing towards professionalizing landlords, okay, the industry, whatever, yeah, whether that be agents within the industry, landlords within the industry. Because they're doing that, you have to get on the bandwagon with it, or you'll be left behind. Which means the tendency will be towards moving towards limited companies, okay, and having a company structure and all that, as opposed to buying them in your personal name and being an accidental. Okay, so that's the principle behind it. Yeah, it doesn't mean to say that I'm saying go out and do it in a limited company or your own name. Better? Well, I've seen advice go both ways. Yeah, I've seen some accountants do this, some accountants do that. I've seen some accountants come up with both options, and I think that make a decision. Strategy, before we start introducing deals to you, we work through those things, okay? Because then you can, when you speak to the account, structure is, it's there for you, okay? So good. Yeah. All right. So, if you had 100,000, would you buy one property in London or two up north? Okay. So, I guess the first thing I would say is this: is that 100,000 in London. Okay, and that's just the reality. So you're probably going to be looking at zone 3, 4, 5. All right, as opposed to you're probably not going to get zone 1, even zone 2 nowadays. So it really depends on that. But what I would say is this: yeah, it doesn't matter whether you buy one there, two there, three there, one there, and one there. Whatever the configuration. What you need to do is buy the stuff. Say. Is if you can afford to buy one in London. London has cities, all right? So go for element, and the other element is that you can emotionally pass. I've got enough money to buy a property in London. How much, what happens if the tenant doesn't pay? What happens if they destroy the place? That isn't in alignment with. It may be better to either start off with one property and sleep at night and you're okay, and then save up for the next, or start with two, and work that out. Also, you need to look at where the market's at, because if London house prices stabilise and they're not really going up as much, maybe you might find that Manchester, Birmingham, Leeds, Liverpool, where they've come through a period of money in there. It really depends on a number of team, and you get a portfolio management review. We come up with things, and they're very simple for us because we've been doing the portfolio management, big one, and you'll hear this as opposed to a deal hunter. It's not just about flogging deals. Is how most agents sell. It's about getting the plan and the strategy in place, and I think that's the key there. And from that, on things like emotions. So what's the next one? In your view, how would you compare HMOs versus off-plan new build? So first of all, that question, it's a little bit of a misleading question in that it puts off-plan and new build together. Now, they are together because generally an off-plan is a new build property, but there's off-plan and there's completed stock, which is new build. So they're both new build, but there's stuff which is off-plan, which is off the plan, which means it's not built yet. So there's additional risks there, there's additional opportunities, For me, this is more a question about, is it a do-it-yourself or a done-for-you solution? Now, I know there's lots of people running around saying they manage HMOs and do it all for you, and HMOs generally get a better return, but my concern with a lot of the way HMOs are sold is that they don't put the full details in there, the full risks in there in terms of the time you've got to put in and the risks that are attached to that. So if you've got, and really it comes down to this, what do you want, done for you or do it yourself? But again, what is the stage of the market? Because if the market is not, if the market's dropping, you don't want to be in off-plan. It's not a strategy for when the market's dropping. Off-plan is a fantastic market when the market's going up like this. Now, the other side of it is with HMOs, you've got issues around how many HMOs are in the area and what's the council thinking about them. You've got regulations, you've got all this sort of stuff, additional regulations. Whereas the new build off plan, you've got a new build property. So there's not too much to worry about it. Generally, it's a good quality if it's got NHBC or, it's got little warranties, things like that. So they're very different. And really what you need to do is sit down with the team and talk about what it is you're looking to achieve. Again, the plan and strategy. Neither is good nor bad. And this is one of the key things. People keep saying to me, is HMO better than student? Is hotels better than residential? Is this better than that? Should I be buying Spain or Bulgaria or all this sort of stuff? Oh, sorry guys, I forgot to put my face back on. But it doesn't strategy, you choose strategy, the market cycle, your strategy to bring a lot of this sort of, then you will be successful. Whether you do development, whether you do joint venture, whether you do whatever it is. There's 1,000. And when you're successful with one, then I say you can look at a second one and advise more than even the guys I know that may they tend to do one or the game. They know how everything works, and they invest to there. All right, guys. So next one, where are we? Okay. Oh, I've already mentioned this one a little bit. Portfolio strategist, great. Yeah. So obviously, I made a comment about being a portfolio strategist. He's saying great, but surely the deal is important. Yeah. One of my, and I'll just explain big problems with the marketplace out there is the way most agents are taught is they're taught. They sell on emotion, they sell on urgency, they sell on all these concepts. And what ends up happening is, I don't have a problem with that, but what I have a investment like that, okay? And what ends up happening is the whole market, the way it's set up, is very much, so that it long. If you don't buy it today, you're going to miss it. So they apply this urgency. They apply, as if these deals don't come along every day. I've been in this game 25 years, and I can tell you the best deal in property comes along every day. If you don't buy this one today, there'll be another one tomorrow and the day after. Same, if not better. Okay. The bottom line is it doesn't matter about the deal until you've got the foundation built. The plan, the strategy, and bringing all that together. And when you do that, it is amazing what you can achieve, okay? But you don't want to be racing in, and that's why I talk about portfolio strategy and getting that up front. Then you can be free to look at deals. Then you know the rules of the game that apply to the deals. And then you can really make it work, okay? As opposed to being sold to any old stuff, and who knows whether the claims they're making are true or false, or whether they're going to come to pass, because most of the time you're getting rushed into that decision, or you're comparing apples and oranges and thinking that they're the same without understanding the full story, okay? And that's why we get the strategy right, we get the rules of the game right, we get the market cycle right, and then we go, right, let's have. But the deal is only important after you get the foundation built, yeah? Could you help someone with a small amount of capital? Okay, so it didn't say what a small amount of capital was. I didn't define, but the bottom line is, can we help? Look, absolutely. I mean, one of the things you're going to find in property, okay, because what I'm finding is a lot aren't actually in a position to buy property. So they're learning about property, which is fantastic. Questions are coming about, well, how do I get into a position to invest? How do I save money when I'm only earning this much money? How do I, and this is one of the challenges we're facing now from a lot of people, is that actually they're not able to save the deposit. Yeah. Now, part of that is education, and another part of that is discipline around money. And the third part is about false programming and unfortunately, part of it is, you've got to get the right education, and part of the process of getting the right education is facing a lot of the demons that your family, the media, program out of you. And then the last thing is getting the disciplines that apply to being successful and being wealthy and having money. Because if you don't deal with those, it doesn't matter how much property you have, how much money you get. And this is why people win, the lottery, and then a couple of years later, they're back to square one. Or worse, they're in debt because they don't have the education, they have the bad programming, and they don't have the discipline around who you're talking to in the business. And my business is, you've got certainly what I people to be able to understand, the whole lot. Okay. So do you recommend interest-only mortgages or repayment for buy-to-let? So, look, bottom line is, it doesn't matter what I recommend in that, unfortunately, most lenders now are pushing you into the repayment mortgages because they want to see that you've got a repayment mortgage. And sure, they'll give you a interest-only mortgage, but then they want to see how you're going to repay that. So you've either got to have an investment on the side or something you're going to liquidate or whatever. But certainly it is better, for the most part, to have an interest-only mortgage. It decreases your repayments each month, gives you a bit more flexibility, but most importantly is over a long time, inflation. You took the mortgage out here, mortgage 15, 20 years, because generally, you're 20, 25 year for a mortgage. And so you pay less, okay? Which is fantastic. Sorry, the future dollars are worth a lot more than the debt against it. That is the key principle, I always try and do interest only, but the reality is that doesn't happen as regularly now. It used to happen. It is you can make money in property, okay? And what you can afford and what you can't afford, okay? All right, do we just deal with the beginners, or can you help with someone with a little more advanced? Okay, so good. So basically, look, a lot of it was seemingly complex concepts, and I make them really simple, yeah? And look, make no mistake, investing with certainty takes a high level of education, a high level of emotional intelligence, yeah? And through that then, once you get those, yeah, fantastic. But to come back to the question, can I deal with more advanced people? Absolutely. I mean, the biggest portfolio that we've ever dealt with is, I think, 49 properties is where my expertise lies. Yeah, because the principle about beginners, which is 0 to 2 properties. Yeah. Experience, which is 2 to 5 properties, and then professionals, or numbers investors I like to call them, is 5+ properties. Now, one of the key things with that, in me saying that, is what I'm telling a numbers investor, a professional investor, after 5. It's amazing how easy and how repeatable property is. Once you understand, and once you've got 5 properties under their belt, and you've been letting them, and you've been buying them and selling them and doing all this, it is amazing how it's the same thing over and over. And it doesn't matter whether you've got 10 properties or 20 properties or 30 properties, it's all the same thing. Yeah, and I have this thing when we talk about wealth creation and that sort of stuff, in a few of the work stuff that I do, I talk about how actually the difference between a millionaire is zeros. Yeah, the principles are the same. If you can prove that you can handle $10, then you'll get an extra zero with $100. Yeah, prove you can handle that, get $10,000, and then $100,000, and then $1 million. Yeah, the problem is very few people ever get to that 100,000 level. Yeah, most people probably get to the 10,000 level, that zero level. So that's, but to a big portfolio, strategies in their portfolios, all sorts of things. Okay, no problems whatsoever. Lose by using a done-for-you model versus do-it-yourself. Okay, so first of all, and let me explain done-for-you. You're going to, and this is my key distinction here, task, but you keep the responsibility. It's where you put the money in and they take care of it, they do everything, and you get no say in it. Okay? I'm not talking about passive investment. All right? What I'm talking what's going on, so at any point you can back out, change firms, do whatever you need to do, and actually you understand the decision. okay? So that's, for me, the distinction of done for you, yeah? Delegate the task, but not the responsibility, which means you get other people who are professionals. I mean, to give you an idea, I don't expect my investors to know all 170 pieces of legislation, but by outsourcing to a professional that does, so for instance, I've got my level 3 certificate in property sale, level 4 in both those, because the regulation of property agents is coming in the UK. And the reality is, it's going to be there. We'll have regulation of agents, and all agents will have to do that if they. Bottom line is, how much does it cost? Coming back to the question, okay? So do it yourself is you do it yourself, and yeah, you're still going to get people to do it. So there's still going to be a done for you. The distinction, I think, between the two, the done for you and the do it. Your property for you, find your tenants. I mean, you could do it all yourself. In fact, you're going to be a full-time landlord, not a full-time investor, and expects a return. A landlord manages property and is. So that's the distinction for me. I want to be the investor, not the landlord, okay? Although I still understand my responsibilities as a landlord, okay? So what's the additional cost? Look, the costs don't have to be that much additional, yeah? Because actually, really, what I tend to find is it's service. Do you want the cheapy service, more than if you're going to pay peanuts? We're talking about monkeys, peanuts, all that stuff. It's not necessarily going to cost you more to have it done in your time that you have to, and the opportunity cost of your time when you do it yourself. Actually, if you price that up, most people eventually get other people to involved in finding tenants for them and doing the maintenance for them and doing all these sort of things for them, okay? Starting out, if you're a beginner and you're at that under 5 properties, it's better to have somebody holding your hand. It's better to have day in, day out, because they have the quantity of transactions. I've sold over £1 billion of property through my various companies, in my career. £1 billion. Now, you might be sitting there and saying, well, I've had 2 properties at 250 grand from a. You might have been in it for 6 months, yeah? So there's a level of expertise there that myself and my team have. Of assessing whether that, the person you're speaking to on the phone, what's their situation? What are they? You'll start to realize that actually a lot of guys are very shallow on, because they're sales deal hunters, yeah, and they're basically trying to sell you a deal, as opposed to portfolio strategists, which I talk about, which is much more about getting, really down and dirty with the strategy and the detail. All right. So I probably went on a little bit long. And they were to sell those shops for 250, can an equivalent income be created from property? Okay. So potentially yes, but would I say, you're talking about, because I'm not sure here whether if you're just selling, if you own 2 shops which are property, or whether you own a property that has a going concern business as part of it, okay? I'm not sure of the distinction and the real estate of a shop. That will probably earn you more money than a passive investment. But what I'd say is right now, given the deposits and things like that, probably not on those figures. If I'm just, just rule of thumbing it, I would say probably not. Are you going to get to your sort of that 40,000 mark? I think you're going to come up short. I think you should keep your shops, depending on how they are, fix the going concern, or if they're not a going concern, maybe do up the shops, get more rent, or maybe release some equity from those shops and put it into another. So maybe you only get into a third property, yeah? And whether that be a shop or whether that be whatever, that's something we can talk about, because you may want to diversify from the shop, or you may want to go to a different area from the shop, because obviously if the shop is in the same area, I don't know, without knowing more detail. So there's a whole range of questions that I would ask there. But look, it doesn't mean, residential buy-to-let yield, okay? But when you add yield and capital growth and lack of, factor all those things, and then you start comparing apples for apples, not apples for oranges for peanuts, of where it's actually sitting. Okay, so yeah, look, I can't answer that exactly, unfortunately, but it's a good question nonetheless. Okay, so are we saying that you only work with people who have 35k? Okay, so this come up in the question. Look, no, we're not saying we only work with people with 35k. All right, 35k is what property, a reasonably priced property. Look, but if you're talking about something, around the 100,000 mark, then really you're coming in at about £35,000 there, that you will need to get in, costs, stamp duties, and whatever else there is. Okay. Do we work with people with less than 35k? Depending on what business you're talking about, certainly Gladfish, what you find is not many properties that we sell around 100,000. So that's what in there we meant by 35,000 is the minimum amount of capital. Now, I know you can go out there and you can speak to 100 different people who will say, no, don't do that. Buy this $40,000 property, buy this $60,000 property. But be aware, the clientele or the tenant that you are putting into that property is different. The quality of the property is different, and that raises issues unto itself. Okay, so as long as you're aware of those issues and you're aware of the rules of the game, then fine. Yeah, you can go with less, but it may be better to actually kick back, take that, put it into something that's earning your interest, and then earn as much money on top of that as you can to get to 35k before you get into property. I mean, look, I'd love to say get into property today, and there is an element of me that says do whatever you can to get into a property. Yeah, property just for the sake of buying a property. Yeah, because you'll probably regret it going forwards. You're better to stick, for me, to the higher end of stuff. Unless you're doing that specific strategy and you know the rules of the game. Okay. Right. Do you recommend using credit cards to do property investment? 100% yes. Now, let me qualify that. 100% yes. If you own your own home and you've got a flexible mortgage whereby you can pay down and redraw and all these sort of things, you can use credit cards to pay off and leave the money in your mortgage. Yeah. A line of credit all on one account, depending on where you are in the world, what they call it, but basically flexible mortgage, where if you leave that money in your account for longer, yeah, so you spend on your credit card. Now, that's not the question that was asked. The question that was asked was basically, I don't have any capital, but I have a credit card that I could buy my property with. Well, unfortunately, I'd say 100% no. All right, it's just too dangerous a thing, and I think some of these questions, a seminar, to the free night, and then you go along to board off that, and you put that on the credit card, and they say, oh, but if you want help doing this and da-da-da, then there's a mentorship, 10 grand. I'll put it on my credit card. I would say don't. Yeah, and I know there's plenty of people who would say don't. All right, and the reason they would say in debt you end up without a property. And I mean, I've seen guys spend up to £36,000 and still not have a property yet. Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, look, you got to do what you got to do, and if you think that you can do it via credit cards, I think you need, I think you need your head read because you're crazy. I think you're far better to get some discipline. Yeah, save up that money any other way you can. You know, go down to the flea market and sell stuff on the weekends. Work an extra job. Get the money through other means, not through a credit card. I really, I feel quite passionate about that because I think if you're using a credit card, debt, you know what? Spend your time on Google, watch every single video of mine and another 10 other experts, property people, and you know what? You're going to get just as much knowledge out of that, as paying that 10 grand or whatever. It's a sales pitch for most of the time. Okay, so let's move on. How much do you need up front for the 7 to 10 plan? What amount of money would you need to take you straight to 7 to 10? So let me give you some context on this. One plan is buy your own home, 3 properties, and by doing that, you've got your own home, which is living, there's no debt on that, and 3 properties. Average person spends a third of their income on rent, so a third gives you 1 income plus a place to stay. All right, that's the 3+1 plan in that. To get there in the quickest possible time, what I say is buy 7 to 10 properties, hold them for 7 to 10 years. The biggest assumption you make is to sell them, then we can pay off the debt. Yeah, so that's what we talk about 7 to 10. So the question is actually, he's asking how much money do we need to do 7? Yeah, it depends, because if you're only going for 30,000 income, then you'll need a lot less than if you're going for 100,000 income or going for 200,000 income. So it depends on strategy. You'll come away with that knowledge. Look, as a rule of thumb, this is what I look at. Yeah, 5%. So if you want 100,000 income, divide that by 5%, and that will give you, the amount of capital, unencumbered capital outside of your home to earn that income. Capital amount is, if it's $1 million, 5%, and that'll, that'll 20 grand a year, so that's what you got to look at, just using that 5% rule of thumb. All right. And actually, I will just say one other thing. It depends on how long you're doing it over too, all right? But anyway, I've seen other companies that offer hands-off investing, way of investing. What separates you? Good. So I think the key here, what separates us element is the experience of our team and the sheer time that we've been in business and the volume of deals we've done. I mean, it really is so long now. We've seen recessions, we've seen virtually every scam come and go. I mean, it's amazing the depth of knowledge our guys have, and they're small, maybe 3 to 10 people. We've got 40 staff. So and the reality is we've been going a long time. We get really down and dirty with the detail. So our approach, then we can look at deals, and the deals we can do range from being new build, off plan, refurbs, developer, hotel rooms. We can do. So it's quite innovative. Now, some of those you may not be able to access unless you are a high net worth individual, sophisticated individual. So that's there's some regulatory requirements around that. But the bottom line is, there's a whole broad range. So it's not just a case of saying, oh, we're just going to flog your property. No, it may be that we work with you on property. We'll get you some hotels, you get a share in a hotel, maybe a development funding, help out with a developer in the a whole range of things, because I don't care what it is. I mean, what you got to realize, I'm not passionate about property or hotels or, you know, refurbs. That's not where my passion is. My passion is about helping you guys create the lifestyle that you desire. Fantastic, yeah? If it's a great life where you don't have to worry about the bills and things like that, awesome. You know, either end of the spectrum, it doesn't matter. What I don't like is where you and they do whatever the hell they want with it, and they take their money first, and then you're left over with the leftovers. No, that I'm not passionate about. In fact, I'm the opposite of control. It gives you an amazing amount of control. You can choose to sell a property when you want. You can choose to refinance a property when you want. You can do a lot of things, yeah, without having to get permission from a pension fund or from the government, you know. So, you know, for me, that makes a huge difference in what we do, okay? All right, so what aftercare services do you offer if I buy a property through you? Look, bottom line is we're set up as a full service property management or portfolio management company. So to, you know, accountants, structuring, wills, mortgages, whatever, you know, I could rattle off 100 things. The idea is it's a whole of life relationship. In other words, we will help you do the research all the way through to making a decision, negotiating the deal, through to carpets, flooring, curtains, flooring, whatever, through to managing the property, letting the property, doing, you know, fulfilling all the regulatory requirements for the property, through to reselling the property, the whole way around, and not just in one area, but all areas across the UK. Yeah. So that really is the scope that we do. And what you're going to find, passionate people in each of those areas. And I think that really makes a difference. You know, having people that actually care and, you know, get you guys through to completion and see you start earning that income and really, you know, I mean, look, I love our tenants, but I love our landlords more. And maybe that's the wrong thing to say, because actually I'm supposed to represent both. You know, they're both my clients as an agent, but the reality is, nah, I'm sorry. I love my investors. You know, I love my investors more. Tenants, cool, but, you know, we provide them a good service, and actually by educating our landlords, we actually provide them a fantastic service and a fantastic property to live in. It's not a, you know, a slight against them, but, you know, I do like you guys better. All right, guys. So what's the current stage of the cycle? All right, so look, I have my property trend cycle, and where we are right now, where I think things are going, I think, you know, come May, June next year, 2021, I think we'll hit recession. To do to get back in, and I think what's going to happen as soon as he's back in, he doesn't care about anyone. Yeah, at that stage he loses interest, and once he loses interest, the wheels are going to start to come off because of all the decisions he has made, you know, to get the wheels are just going to come off there, and that will nosedive because we're being so subdued from Brexit. The likelihood is that will keep us from a massive dip. Yeah, doesn't mean we still won't dip. Fundamentals, because that's the stuff that's likely to come back. Yeah, whereas, and that's why I'm saying don't buy in the suburbs right now unless there's a reason for you to buy in those areas, because what I'm finding is there's no investment. The young people are moving out and moving to the cities. There's just nothing happening. Okay, and that's my concern with that stuff. All right, but you can look at other videos and that for a lot more detail into that side of it. And I think we're doing quite well now. We've had a Boris bounce, and all of a sudden we've got political certainty. So the market has rebounded, and people that wanted to put their properties back on have put their properties back on, and the market's working again, which is great. that we will be heading into a recession eventually. I don't think they can keep spending and spending and spending and spending the world to keep, you know, the growth, because it's just creating inequality. You know, go have a look at what Bernie Sanders said is in the UK, you know, or a lot of people. You know, a lot of the things he was talking about are actually, I think he was probably, his policies were not going to be fair across the board, yeah, and they were going to disadvantage the middle class, you know, whereas I think, you know, there's lots of opportunity. So look, I'm not going to get into that political debate now, because I really don't give a rat's ass about politics. What I care about is and being able to invest. All right. So yeah, good. Can I speak to any of your existing clients? Good one. Okay, so absolutely. Look, the best thing to do is chat to the team, some of their clients. You know, we've got over 3,000 reviews. You can actually see a heap of the reviews that we've got. You can go onto Google, all agents, and what's the other one? I've forgotten what it is. Anyway, if you go onto that reviews page, you'll see there's links there to the reviews. But there's heaps of them, you know. And in fact, there's a good few video interviews. One of the things I'm committed to this year is actually getting some video interviews of our landlords, you know, and our investors who have done very well, because you know, they, you know, and we get to know them quite well, you know. Good. What's the impact of rising build to rent? Okay, so build to rent. So what build to rent is, all right, now I'm probably going to be quite controversial here, but I don't really care. It's my opinion. I think the government and the wealthy elite and the corporate elites have decided that a good way to control the property is if they control it, okay? And the average landlord isn't involved in it anymore. And so what I think is happening is a lot of the regulations and things like that, and professionalize the industry, is pushing the being handed over to professional corporates, you know, with big money and pension funds and that sort of stuff. But and that's a good thing, because we're not building a double-edged sword. I don't agree with pushing out. I think there should be a market for that, but I think there will be. And where I think this development sites and the big, which I love. Look, I love my regeneration. We've done very well out of regeneration for clients, and I continue to look for regeneration. You know, that is awesome. And so those sites, that's where it's good for, because what it does, it totally lifts an area. Look at Woolwich, yeah, Royal Arsenal. Look at Kidbrooke. Look at Southall. Look at Manchester. Look at Birmingham. You know, crossrail stations. You know, massive infrastructure spending by large pension funds and government. You know, because it's generally a private and public, you know, initiative. And you know, amazing things can happen. And then, so what you can do, and this is the opportunity for you with build to rent, is if you know they're spending 1.2 on that area, you sit there and you go, oh, let me have a look around that area. I mean, you know, Southall is one of those areas where I'm going back, and what I will be doing is I'm actually staying out in Southall, and I'm getting out there and, you know, walking the pavements and finding opportunities for us to invest in, both development opportunities, but also individual refurb opportunities, you know, for our clients to invest into. You know, why not? Why the hell wouldn't we? Because it's West London, it's still quite close, you know, straight in on the tube, Crossrail, those sort of things. Yeah, so that's the approach that I'm taking, you know. And you know, so build to rent, I think, will be more exclusively for the city centres and the large projects near the city centres, not in the outlying towns and things like that. So yes, it'll have an effect there, but not out there. I just think the infrastructure spending is not going to be there, and the opportunity, the fundamentals shops, schools, transport links, major employees, major investment, aren't really going to be there like they should. Okay, so yeah. How do you choose the right areas? So yeah, good. Phew, this is a massive question. Okay, so we have a 5-step process, and the 5-step process is I start off with data. Districts in the UK, 108 data points, and I download into a big website, which was 12-15 months ago. We got about 150 different areas. I think it was slightly less than 150 areas. And so what we did then is we then took those areas and we did what's called an area investment guide on each of those. And they're available for free on our website. If you go onto the website, gladfish.com, and then just go up the top and you'll see research and then property investment guides. And they're all there, okay? And that is those areas. Now, I'm not saying invest there. I'm saying based on the data, yeah? So once we've done that, yeah, so you've got the hotspots algorithm, then you've got the area investment guides, and then what we have is what's called the ripple effect pentagon, okay? And look, hopefully we know what the ripple effect is, okay? If not, I've done a video on it, but basically the ripple effect is simply that house prices and the best fundamentals go up. Want to buy there, can't, go to the next space, and they buy here. And then that goes up, and then those people have to buy there, and that ripples out, okay? And it ripples out along fundamentals, okay? Not a ripple like a stone dropping in a pond and at equidistance. It doesn't do that, okay? So, takes that concept and says, right, the best fundamentals are London Zone 1 and 2. So if you can afford to invest there, invest there. If you can't, Zone 3, 4. If you can't, major cities. If you can't, major towns. Okay? And what we do is we look at the current market and where things are going, and we go, right, this is probably the opportunity area now here. And within those, let's say London commuter, yeah? Within that area, these are the areas we like to invest. Yeah. Then what we do, so that's the third step. First step is hotspots algorithm. Second step is the area. Step is we go looking for deals and relationships and developers and agents and that sort of thing. Okay. So if you think about it with Southall, we're already doing deals there. Okay. But I'm spending more and more time in that area. Manchester's another area that we're spending more and more time. We're about to offer. So there's lots of things happening from that perspective, and we go out and we get local, and that's the key there, get local. Yeah. So either through our existing relationships or through new relationships, we work out what's there. Then, and part of that is we do a DD invest when we get local. So on those areas, and when we get those developments, we do a due diligence invest, which is a research document specific to the development or to. The fifth phase is the cash flow. We prepare a cash flow where we overstate expenses and understate incomes, so you can see what a realistic worst case your plan on the worksheet we work through. All the yellow bits are things that you can change, okay, to adapt it to your plan, how you want the process that we use. Now there's a whole heap of other things. There's little intricacies that we do that a lot of people don't do. For instance, when we're researching, we call up as a landlord and we say, hey, I'm thinking about buying in the area, how much? Yeah? Say let's rent a property. How much to rent a property if I buy? And all of a sudden that landlord, so that agent is going to sell us up to the highest possible rent you can get for whatever that is in the area. And then they manage our expectations down. Sell up, manage down, yeah? Then what I do is I hang up and I ring back again, yeah? And I say, I'm looking to rent in the area, how much is it going to cost? And they go sell down to the lowest possible thing, and then when I meet them, they manage my expectations up. So somewhere between that figure and that figure is where the realistic market rent is. So it's little things like that, the little intricacies that we do and have done for many years. Now, some of the other things is, as part of that research, we look for things like regeneration. So we look for areas where there's massive regeneration, massive change in fundamentals, shop, skills, transport, major investment. Yeah, and they're the areas that attract us because they're the areas Okay. All right, guys. Well, that's all the questions from the webinar this week. And I hope you've enjoyed that, and I hope you've got some really good value from that. If you've got any questions whatsoever, jump on my YouTube channel, Facebook, and just message me, and I'm happy to answer them either in video or text or whatever. And look, guys, be sure to subscribe to my channel. Be sure to comment, and I look forward to seeing you if you want to come along to one of the webinars. And we're more than happy to chat through, and the guys can take you through. Because let's face it, it's all good watching YouTube videos. It's all good watching Facebook videos. It's all good being on LinkedIn. It's all good being on the social media and learning all that sort of stuff. But until you sit down and get down and dirty with your detail and how it affects in your life and your family's life, really none of it means, all this education doesn't mean anything until you take your first step. So get and meet with a team. If you do book-or gladfish.com, book-a-meeting, and go there, book a meeting with a team, sit down with them, get all your questions answered. Yeah, it's not a sales pitch. This is where we get your plan, work out what it is you want to achieve, where you're starting out, and then we work out how we can help you get there. And you know what? If we can't help you getting there, that's fine. If you're going to choose a strategy that we don't get involved with, fine. You know what? There's so much free education there that you can learn the fundamentals from. I'm happy to gift that away. It's all free. It's there. I've been doing this for years, giving my education away free. You don't need to go and spend 10 grand, 30 grand, whatever it is, even, 2.5, 3 grand for a weekend, to learn this stuff. It's there, it's available. And it's, if you're talking about my stuff, it's very simple, okay? So guys, any questions, come back to me. Otherwise, have a great day. Live with